I'm Jonah Berger. I'm a marketing professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Today, I'll give you a brief tour through some of the ideas of my New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller, Contagious, Why Things Catch On. But the folks here were nice enough to buy a copy for each of you, so it's on the tables. Enjoy it. There's a bunch more resources there. I will tell stories today, because as we'll learn, stories are the currency of conversation. But if you're interested in academic research, if you want to know what data we used or how we reached the conclusions, all the academic papers are up at jonahberger.com under the Research tab. Academic papers tend to be a little long-winded, tend to be a little hard to get into, lots of tables with lots of statistics, but they're all there. And if you have trouble sleeping, feel free to download one. It'll put you to sleep right away. So that's all there as well. And you can also find me at J1Berger on Twitter. So it goes without saying that word of mouth is important. And hopefully everyone in the room realizes this already, but I put this quote up just in case you don't. Word of mouth is much more impactful than traditional advertising. Whether we're talking about any sort of behavior, any sort of product, online or offline, word of mouth, research shows, is over 10 times as effective as traditional advertising. And there are two key reasons for that. Does anyone have any idea what those reasons might be? Trust. Right? We trust our friends. We don't trust ads. Does anyone remember, I don't know if there are any football fans in the audience, but does anyone remember an ad from last season that had Joe Montana in it, and it was for these Skechers shoes called Shape-Ups? Does anyone remember this ad? That Shape-Ups are shoes that tone your butt. Did anyone remember what you saw when you thought you saw football great Joe Montana in an ad for Skechers Shape-Up shoes? Right? I remember thinking, he must owe somebody a lot of money. He must have a gambling debt or some child support payments, some alimony. Something's wrong in the Joe Montana household, because there's no way that football great Joe Montana actually uses shoes that tone his butt. And that's funny, right? And we laugh at poor Joe Montana. But we do this all the time with ads. And consumers do it all the time with our messages. When we put health information out there, consumers are saying, who is this coming from? And do I believe this information? And they know that you're trying to convince them, and so they're always going to push back. Right? They're not going to believe you because that's what ads do. Ads always try to convince people, so we push back. We're much more likely to listen to our friends than we are to ads. And also what's great about our friends is our friends can target the right people. Right? You may not know who in a social network needs to get walking, who's already walking, who's not already walking. So maybe you buy some ad time or you send out a bunch of mailers, but you're already hitting a bunch of people that are already engaging in the behavior. How do you find people that need this information? Well, why not use their friends to find them for you? Right? People know what their friends are doing. They have the best sense of what their friends and colleagues are doing. We know who at the office is already walking and who isn't. Why not use them to help us target the new people? And indeed, word of mouth is great, much better at targeting than traditional advertising. So hopefully I've convinced you that word of mouth is useful. Many of you may have known that already. But let's think about how to get it. And when most of us think about how to get word of mouth, we think about social media. We think about online tools like Facebook and Twitter. If you had to guess, what % of all word of mouth from 0 to 100 is online? On things like social media, on blogs, on online reviews. From 0 to 100, what % of word of mouth is online? I heard everything from 6 to 60, I think. That's a pretty wide swath. Does anyone want to go higher? Do I hear 65, something? So if we were playing The Price is Right, whoever said 6 would have won the toaster. It's actually 7. 7% of word of mouth is online. And it's clear that we think a lot of word of mouth is online. And many of you who probably didn't raise your hand might have thought it was 70 or 80, but when you heard 6, you held your guess. Right? And notice that's social influence at work. Right? When you hear somebody say one thing that's far away from your guess, you say, well, maybe I'll keep quiet, because I don't want to seem like I'm wrong. Right? But that number is really important for two reasons. First of all, we need to think about offline as well as online. Right? I didn't tweet to my colleagues at the office, you should bike to work. It was the mere fact that my bike was in my office that we had an offline conversation about it. And second, we need to focus more on the psychology and less on the technology. Because technology comes and goes. Every year there's a hot new tool that everyone's using, that the kids are on, that everyone's chasing. Right? But a few years ago it was MySpace. And you might have spent time and resources learning how to use MySpace, and now it's not so useful, because nobody's on MySpace anymore. So rather than thinking about the technology, let's focus on the psychology. Just because you have a Facebook page or a Twitter page doesn't mean you're using it effectively. You need to understand why people talk about and share some things rather than others to design things that are more likely to be talked about and shared. And so that brings me to a very cute picture of a cat. This is not my cat. If it was, I would be a very proud cat owner. It's a cat DJ, sort of scratching on a turntable almost with its little paw. It's actually a scratching post to sharpen its claws. Why did I put a picture of a cat up, though, in a talk about word of mouth and environment? Cat, what do you mean by catvertising?
Nobody wants to see ads. They want to see cat videos.
They want to see cat videos. Thank you for the enthusiastic response. I appreciate it. I've never heard catvertising before, but I like the term. I'm going to use that one again. There's this notion out there that cats make the internet go round. If there were no cats, there would be no internet. Right? There would be nothing to share. What would people share in the first place? And it's a really great theory that cats make the internet go round, except it's completely and utterly wrong. It doesn't tell us anything about why some cat things succeed and other cat things fail. And it doesn't tell us anything about the thousands of things that get talked about and shared that have nothing to do with cats. What should you do if you want to get people walking, right? Show them videos of cats walking? Probably not. Okay? And so instead of focusing on cats, I want to focus on science. We've spent the last 10 years studying why people talk and share. We've looked at thousands of pieces of online content, tens of thousands of brands, and millions of purchases across the United States. And again, we saw that it wasn't random, and it wasn't luck, and it wasn't chance, and I'm sorry, it wasn't cats. There's a science behind why people talk and share. And again, we saw the same 6 principles driving things to catch on, whether they were products, whether they were ideas, whether they were behaviors. And so I put those 6 things into a framework. Today, we'll talk about the 6 key steps that drive all sorts of products and ideas to catch on, and we'll think about how to apply them to walking. And the goal here, again, very simply, is to craft contagious content. And what I mean by that is not just our marketing messages, but even how we design websites, even how we design features of products to make it more likely that social influence will help us get this thing to catch on. Right? We need to use the fact that people tend to follow others to help that create a movement around walking. Because that's the goal. Just like there are political movements, just like we see viral videos catching on, we can get behaviors to catch on. We can get movements around behaviors. And viral videos are great, and I'll talk some about viral videos today, but that's actually not what we need. If we got a video with 50 million views, I'm sure everybody here would be happy. And if you created that video, I'm sure you'd get promoted. So that would be great for you. But the goal, right, is to turn people who are already engaged in this behavior into advocates. You can think of them as customers, people already walking. How can we turn customers into advocates? How can we get each person who walks to get just one friend to walk? Just one colleague at work to go walking with them? If we could do that, we would be extremely successful, and we'd be really happy, and we'd be changing behavior. And so that's the goal, right? To tip those scales just a little bit by increasing word of mouth and increasing social influence. So again, today I'll talk about social currency, I'll talk about triggers. I probably see if I have time for public, and I'll talk about stories, but the other principles are in the book. And also, I hopefully will have time for questions at the end, but if you have any questions in the meantime, feel free to stick a hand up, and I'll try to answer them. So let's start by talking about a story. Is anyone here from New York? A couple folks. You may be familiar with this one. But if you're not from New York, imagine you're there for a weekend. You're walking around on the Lower East Side. Your stomach is sort of rumbling. You want to go grab a bite to eat. When you notice a big hot dog-shaped sign out in front of a restaurant with the words "Eat Me" written on it in what looked like mustard. You say, I haven't had a hot dog in a while, so why not? So you walk down a flight of stairs into a restaurant called Criff Dogs. Now, if you like hot dogs, you will be in heaven. Criff Dogs has every hot dog you can imagine. It has a bacon, Good Morning hot dog with bacon, eggs, and cheese. A little rough on the stomach in the morning, but interesting nonetheless. A hot dog with green onion and pineapple, and a traditional New York-style water dog with just ketchup and mustard. So you're sitting there, you're munching on your hot dog, you're enjoying it, you finish up, when you notice something unusual in the corner of the room. It almost looks like a phone booth, right? One of those things that Clark Kent might jump into to change into Superman. So just for fun, slide open the door and walk inside. It's pretty cramped, right? It is a phone booth after all. But you'll notice on the wall a rotary dial phone. And just stick your finger in, let's say, the number 2, go around in a circle, and hold the phone up to your ear. And you'll hear it go ring, ring. And then someone will pick up the other line, and they'll ask you whether you have a reservation. Reservation? I'm in a phone booth inside of a hot dog restaurant. What could I possibly have a reservation for? But if you're lucky, and there happens to be space, or you happen to have a reservation, the back of that phone booth will open, and you'll be led into a secret bar called Please Don't Tell. Now, please don't tell has violated a number of traditional laws of marketing. Right? There's no sign on the street, no sign inside the restaurant. They've done everything they can to make it difficult for people to find out about them. Yet they've never advertised, and every day they're full. 3 p.m. the phone lines open up. By 3:30, all the seats are gone. You have to hit redial again and again trying to get through. So what did they do right? Well, they made themselves a secret. And let me tell you a little secret about secrets. Think about the last time someone told you something, and they told you not to tell anybody else. What's the first thing you then did with that information? You told somebody, right? Because having access to something that not everybody else does makes you look smart and in the know, makes you feel special. It gives you what I'll call social currency. Just like the car we drive and the clothes we wear, the things we say affect how people see us. The behaviors we engage in affect how people see us. So how can we make people look good by walking and by talking about walking with others? Right? How can we make them look special, so sharp and in the know, that they want to tell other people? So let's unpack that for a couple minutes.